Hey guys, what's up? MadSeason here, back with another episode in the Azeroth Arsenal. This is a series where I go over the story behind some of the more iconic weapons in the game's history, both in-game and out-of-game, and in this episode we'll be covering the legendary Warglaives of Azzinoth from the Burning Crusade expansion. These were the first legendaries in the expansion, not counting the Kil'Thas ones, and they were unique in the sense that they're part of an actual set, and is believed by many to have the most impressive looking models in the entire game. But before we get into how to actually get the weapons, as usual, let's talk about their history and that of their wielders. The original wielder was not Illidan Stormrage like you may have guessed, but rather a demon by the name of, well, Azzinoth. The story behind him is that he was a powerful lieutenant in the War of the Ancients. This was the Burning Legion's first invasion upon Azeroth, which Illidan, along many others, was a belligerent of. We don't really know too much about Azzinoth's confrontation with Illidan, other than the fact that he was slain by him, and that Illidan absorbed his power because in the Gul'dan fight in Nighthold Mythic mode, some adds called soul fragments of Azzinoth will spawn, and here you can see what he actually looked like. Oddly enough though, his official art depicts him as a terror guard rather than a doom guard, so there's a little discrepancy there. So, it was Azzinoth who was the original wielder, not Illidan. They are of course part of a set, two one-handers classified as swords, and in the lore, you're supposed to be able to combine them into one weapon, sort of like a giant shuriken. Although, as far as I know, we've never actually seen that happen in-game. So, Azzinoth was slain, and his glaives were taken by Illidan Stormrage, so let's talk about him for a bit, since I think to fully appreciate the epicness of these weapons, it's important to know about their wielder. Now, this character, as many of you know I'm sure, has just a huge amount of lore and story tied behind him. For the sake of keeping this video more about the glaives rather than Illidan, I'll give you a very abridged telling of his story. So, Illidan, as we know him in-game, is the final boss of the Black Temple raid, one of the big bads of the Burning Crusade expansion, Lord of the Outland, and Master Detector of Duplicity. He's the first demon hunter, and brother of Malfurion Stormrage. He originally was a sorcerer, and in Legion, you learned some of the backstory with him, and how his hatred of the Burning Legion and his thirst for power sort of blinded him and turned him into a ruthless killing machine. Not necessarily a bad guy, but not a good guy either. An anti-hero is the way that I would describe him. So, he fought alongside his brother Malfurion and other allies during the War of the Ancients. He eventually defected to the Burning Legion in an attempt to destroy them from within. It was because of this he gained the title The Betrayer, and he was imprisoned below Mount Hyjal, where he was watched over by Maiev Shadowsong for 10,000 years. Azeroth eventually prevailed in the War of the Ancients, and after those 10,000 years in prison, he was freed by his friend Tyrande Whisperwind to aid Azeroth in the Third War, which was the Legion's second invasion upon Azeroth. He came to battle the Dreadlord Tychondrius, and in doing so, he absorbed the fell energies held within the powerful Skull of Gul'dan artifact. He gained great powers and defeated the Dreadlord, but at a great cost. He turned into a demon, and his appearance changed to the form that we all recognize today. He sacrificed everything to protect his home, his allies, but was banished by his brother Malfurion for once again taking it too far. He eventually fled to the Outland, where he overthrew its ruler, Megtheridon, and he allied with the former Prince of Kol'Thalas, Kael'thas Sunstrider, and started amassing forces to destroy the Burning Legion once and for all. So, as I said, in-game we see him as the final boss of the Black Temple raid in the Burning Crusade expansion. But, to get to him, you have to go through several extremely challenging fights, and to even zone into the Black Temple, you initially had to go through an extremely challenging attuning process requiring other raids. It wasn't the final raid of the Burning Crusade, that was the Sunwell, but it certainly was one of the hardest. Illidan sits atop the temple, peering into the skull of Gul'dan, the artifact that made him into what he is today. And with the demon-slaying warglaives in hand, he battled it out with 25 adventurers in a 4-phase fight. In the middle of it, he takes to the sky and throws his glaives to the ground, summoning some flame elementals of Azzinoth. But eventually, with the help of his former jailer, Maiev, you take him down. And if you're very lucky, he'll drop either the left or right Warglaive of Azzinoth. So, you have the main hand and the offhand. The set bonus has a chance to give you some haste for 10 seconds on attacks, and appropriately, a passive to increase attack power when fighting demons. As for the models, they're quite stunning even to this day. Definitely one of the more flashy weapons in the game at the time. Huge models and a bright green fell glow. During vanilla, there were a few NPCs in the game that used glaives. You could find them in the Diremaul instance, and everyone always wanted them. I think just the idea of having a double-bladed weapon was just so cool, and the Warglaives of Azzinoth just took that to the extreme. In fact, someone wanted them so badly that he offered to buy another player's account which had the glaives for nearly 7,000 euro, which was around 10,000 US dollars at the time. The trade was made, and shortly after, the account was banned for account sharing. Now those are some expensive pixels. And just like many others in this series, it had its own card in the official trading card game. 3 of them actually, the left, right, and the set. A legendary appearance to match its legendary rarity, dropped from a legendary character in a legendary expansion. So that's about it for this one. That's the story of the Warglaives of Azzinoth and that of their wielders. This is where I normally would end it, but for the next video in this series, I'm looking for some advice. Some of you may have noticed that I jumped straight into the Burning Crusade, but I still have some more vanilla weapons to cover, namely Atish and the Corrupted Ashbringer. The reason I skipped these is because I did actually cover them before. So, my question for you is, for the sake of completeness, do you guys want to see me cover these items again in the Azeroth Arsenal series? They're definitely interesting and have some stories tied behind them, but I wanted to ask you guys first since you might find it annoying if I go over them again and rehash them basically. I guess a positive though is if they have their own dedicated episodes, I can go more in depth, whereas the other times I covered them, I had to leave out a lot since they were just part of a video talking about other stuff as well. So I'll leave it up to you guys. Also, is it Atish or Atish? I can't find any solid confirmation either way, and I should probably know how to pronounce something before I make a video about it, so any help on that would be appreciated as well. Anyways, that's all I got for you for this one. I hope you found it interesting or entertaining. Like it if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Farewell for now, mortals. We hope you enjoyed today's video. See you again soon.